Hello, welcome back. It's been a while, hasn't it? We're back into the amalgamated world of Marvel heroes and video game characters. As silly as this may appear, especially with the thumbnail presented, let me remind you that both sources are equally ridiculous and often put the comic in comic books. For example, the lineup for the Avengers that you're familiar with includes a radioactive Jekyll and Hyde, a Russian super spy that for some reason defected to the US, a recolored Green Arrow, a drugged up super soldier that fights evil Germans with a frisbee, a literal Norse god, and a significantly less evil version of Elon Musk. The latter one is probably the most unrealistic of them all. Every day he vindicates my lack of respect for him. Then there are the video game counterparts used. Do I even need to tell you how weird those are? Oh, sorry. I was on a tangent for a second there. Let me apologize for that. Let us not waste any more time and get into today's subject as promised. As you might have guessed, this story is about Peter Parker. He was a normal teenager with an average life. He was raised by his Aunt May, Masuyo, and his Uncle Taizo, the latter being a retired miner. He works for Cave Jonah Johnson at the news publication known as the Daily Aperture. The only non-average thing in his life was that he was friends with Dr. Clash Octavius. He was often the outcast in school, so he connected with a scientist in the area. This particular one was experimenting with radioactivity in insects in order to find an ultimate power source, the power of the sun at the palm of his hands. His life changed when he visited the lab during the weekend and brought lunch with him. This seemingly harmless and insignificant decision will lead him to his herodom because, while he was eating, a radioactive spider crawled upon the table he was sitting at. He didn't notice the spider but ignored it as he went to take a drink of water. When he looked back at the table, he assumed the little arachnid left, but in truth, it had crawled into his food, the sandwich that he was about to bite into. When he bit into his food, he unwittingly consumed the spider. Its radioactive blood was digested, leaving him a little nauseous. He excused himself and went home for the rest of the day. However, he awoke the next morning feeling rather splendid, as if nothing ever happened. He didn't notice anything different until he tried to put his glasses on. When he did, his vision was very blurred. When he took them off, he saw clearly, a detail that went unnoticed due to him still being a little tired. He also felt a little stronger, as if he had the strength to lift the whole house up. He also found that he had the ability to stick to and climb on walls like a spider. Later that day, while at work, he saw an ad in the paper that advertised an opportunity to wrestle Hugh Big Hogan. The reward for surviving 3 minutes in the ring with him is $1,000. The struggling teen accepted it graciously. The wrestling alias that he chose was a Pac-Man. He defeated him with a combination of powers and some fishing rope Big had lying outside the arena because he was planning on going fishing after the fight. Despite practically dominating the match and causing Big to announce his retirement later that night, he was only given $100 because he KO'd his opponent before the 3-minute mark. Angered, he left, ignoring the man that was approaching the office. He could sense the danger that the man posed with his Iraq sense, as well as spotting the gun he was holding. He didn't care. In his mind, the manager had what's coming to him. After a gunshot rang throughout the building, the mugger fled the scene. He felt that it was not his responsibility to stop him and that the damage was done and for the better. That was until Uncle Taizo was shot by the same robber Peter never stopped. With his uncle dying in his arms, his words of wisdom from the past echoed back to him in his mind. With great power comes great responsibility. This moment, alongside the recollection of his uncle's motivational quote, inspired the young teen to use his powers to become a crime fighter. Inspired by his fight with Big, as well as his spider-like powers, he constructed spider fluid and web shooters so he can swing from and shoot webs from his wrists. Though the world may mock Peter Parker, the timid teenager, it would soon marvel at the awesome might of a Pac-Man. He quickly picked up on some interesting side effects of his powers while crime fighting. The most notable of which is that he found himself being more hungry, as well as having a larger capacity to consume food. Not too much of a problem though, as there are many street vendors in Yorkland and as there are blades of grass. While he initially took on petty street crooks, he soon encountered his first of many supervillains. His first big opponent was none other than Dr. Clash Octavius, now known as Dr. Octobear. The now mad doctor only wanted a close relationship with Peter because he wanted more help in the lab. However, with Peter's new career, he was unable to assist the doctor, leaving him with a desire for more help. His desire led him to create a pair of tentacle arms attached to his back and controlled mentally via a chip at the back of his skull. His experiment went wrong and led him to get his funding cut. All of these factors led him into a criminal lifestyle, so he can continue his now deranged experiments. It is no surprise that the new threat on his plate, as well as later threats he has to deal with, interferes with his secret civilian life. After all, the newly gained strength inside of him helped him overcome his fears and ask out the girl he always had a crush on, Missy Jane Drew. His superheroing career also led to him meeting a colorful cast of characters. Some quite literally, but that's a story for another day. One such individual is Cassandra Faye Webb, an old woman born completely blind, but possessed psychic powers. She had donated her genetic material to many donors, but did not raise any of the resulting children of her own. However, as reports of people claiming they had psychic powers came to her attention, she began her own service, in which she would train many people to use their abilities under the pseudonym of Mother Faye Webb. Unfortunately for her, those so-called psychics were either crazy or just seeking attention. That was until one day when she met Julia Buttercup, who genuinely displayed powers like her own. They first met a Pac-Man after some robbers attempted to steal from them. Soon after, it became somewhat public knowledge that Mother Faye Webb and Julia had legitimate psychic powers. Once this story became popular, a villain known as the Golden Juggernaut planned on kidnapping Julia in an attempt to combat his stepfather. Using her powers, Cassandra warned Pac-Man of the plot and prevented it from happening. She would have stopped it herself, but the physical toll of her powers left her body frail, forcing her to be confined to a throne-like life support system. Since then, she had helped our web-headed hero by warning him whenever something tremendously devastating that he could not detect in the city of Yorkland. However, not all people Peter has met in his life are supporters of Pac-Man's vigilantism. Cave Jonah Johnson. often known as C. Jonah Jameson, is a staunch opponent to whatever he dubs the Arachnid Menace. Johnson is also the founder and CEO of the Daily Aperture, a news publication and research science division, although the latter was abandoned after an incident with his daughter Caroline, involving rockets in a series of portals, resulting in things going horribly awry. Although you probably saw it on the news. There was no one to save the life of his daughter, causing him to resent the superhero community, including the new wall-crawling hero. During a lemon shortage, many wanted to cover the story, to which he infamously replied,
"I don't want your damn lemons! I want a picture of a rat!"
Despite his authority, a more dangerous threat lies with his daughter Caroline. The Science Research Division of Aperture was dissolved by the government. Johnson wanted one last experiment to try and revive his late daughter by putting her mind into an electronic machine. It was called the Wild Organic Life Form and Operating System, or WOLFOS. Its mechanical vessel is anthro-wolfesque, because Caroline liked werewolf stories, and the werewolf motif fit with her missions as they often dealt with the moon in some way. Some interesting things can be found on the moon, but that's definitely for another time. The experiment went horrifically wrong and she attacked everyone. They tried to quarantine her, but she was let loose, leading her to go on a crime spree. Can our wall-crawling hero find and rescue her? Will she be found by another foe of Pac-Man? Perhaps a villain that utilizes portals in some way? That is a question I pose that will be answered at a later date, but not now, for this story is now at its end. I thank you for listening. Until next time, my friends. Goodbye.
Alright man, hitting the head with a frying pan. Hey my guys, gals, and goobs. It's me, the guy that made that intro you just saw. It was good, right? Right? You know, me, Nate, just Nate. Now, before we get into the rest of this outro and stuff, I wanna, apologize for the delay. I got a new computer, but that didn't take that long to set up, so just figuring out the features, really. Just playing around. Also, I was sick, like I mentioned in the last video. I was sick. Still kind of sick, but not really that sick. I got over it, but, I'm still stuffy a bit. You might be able to hear that. I don't know if you can. Hope that you can't. Maybe. Anyway, you may be wondering, why didn't I combine Pac-Man with Sonic? Well, it's been done before. It's been very done before. Look up Stealth the Hedgehog. It's really been done before. Anyway, this is one of the ones I pitched to my dad, all the way long time ago. This was just a concept at that point. Very much so. He laughed his head off when he heard about this combo. However, he had not seen anything yet. Nor will you. Heads up for that. The question, once you've seen them all, is, which one is the strangest? Once in the future, let me know. Alright, once I get all of this out, which is like, at this rate, a few years, really. I'm not sure when this will be out, but this will be out. You may be wondering why I didn't put any blue in there. Well, his shoes are orange, so I kind of had to represent that, you know? Yeah, I had to put part of the original colors in. Also, this was a redesign, what you see before you. It's actually just to make it look more like the original design. In fact, here is the original design. The new design's more supposed to, you know, invoke Super Pac-Man from the second Pac-Man game, you know, Pac-Man 2. You probably never heard of it, maybe? If you've seen the, like, any image of it, you'd be wondering, why does he look smug? Actually, you know what? I'll save you the Google search. This is what he looks like in the game. Yes, he does look smug. With all of that said, I really hope you liked today's video, and if you like it, you know, thumbs up and stuff. Ring that notification bell to be notified of latest releases. And, of course, subscribe. Tell your friends. And then they tell two friends. Then they tell two friends. This isn't a pyramid scheme. No, it's not. Alright, with all of that said, thank you and goodbye.